could try doing these, but before you do it, let's just write down real quick, get another sheet here. Let's just write down real quick the pieces of information you need to calculate present value, future value, interest rates, number of periods, right? Everything, right? Relating to cash flows. So if you want to, what pieces of information are you looking for when you read a problem? This is the key thing. Can you pull out what you need? And then you'll know what you don't have, and what you don't have is what the question's going to do. Always is. Okay, so, and that's true in real life too. What do I want to know? What do I need to know? So what piece of information do you need to calculate the value of anything?
Interest rate.
Okay, interest rate. That's right. Little I or little r, right? Okay? I want to know the interest or the rate. Little r is rate. I means interest. Isn't that clever? If you need to know that. Okay? If you don't know it, you got to solve it. Okay? You got to go find it in real life to find it yesterday. What else?
Number of periods.
Okay, number of periods. So we use a little n for that. And what we mean is number of payments, right? Well, no, not necessarily. We either need number of payments or how long we're going to wait for a payment. All of this, yeah. Payment in or out. It doesn't matter if the cash is in or out. What else do we need to know?
Principal amount.
Okay, what do we call that? He wants to call it principal. I don't mind.
Yes.
The principal is how much you have, what? Right now, currently. What's that? That's a present value. Yeah. So when you see these abbreviations or people use different abbreviations, don't worry about it. You know, have you ever been in a math class and they write a whole bunch of formulas up on the board and you don't know what a whole bunch of the letters mean and you're just lost? You ever experienced that one maybe earlier in your math careers? Right? You know, what's the thing you have to do when somebody starts using variables? Put letters up there. That's what that means. That's it. If you don't know what it means, you're dead. I hate it when I read academic papers and they immediately start into, because there's always formulas and stuff, they immediately start in using all these different variables and they haven't told you what the variable means, and you have to search around in their paper to find it. When I do a paper like that, really early on, there's a table that's right there. I wish I could have the table so they could just pull it out, you know, the journal. You can't, you know, it's found in it, right? But pull it out and have it sit next to you. Because you don't want to say the name of it over and over and over and over, you know, a sentence or something describing your variable. But everybody's got to know what your variables are. If they don't, you're dead. So what does PV mean? What's it worth at the present? That's it, which is present value, of course. And you can call that principal. Yeah, it's a longer time to be principal. Okay, then what else might we want to know? Either solving for or you know, I can leave any of these out. You can solve for the missing one. So what else would there be? Future value. For a lump sum, these are the things, aren't they? Right? How much I'm going to have in the future. So I could give you any three of these. That's what those problems are up there. Several of them at least. I could give you any three of these and you solve the other one, right? It's just not a big deal. If I leave out two of them, you can't do it. Right? When we do WAC CAPM, and as soon as we get done with this chapter, we're going to do weighted average cost of capital and capital asset pricing model. We are going to estimate interest rates. We're going to guess the number of periods, right? So that we can calculate present values of the thing. What is a share of stock worth? For any company, right now. The discounted present value of all its future cash flows forever. Right? Some people don't think it's forever. They think it's for your investment horizon. I disagree. How long you can hold the investment? I disagree. If I buy a share of, I was going to say General Motors. Who would buy that? Okay, anyway, if I were to buy a share of Ford Motor Company right now, right? Okay, if I were to buy a share of Ford Motor Company right now, I have to pay for all the cash flows that are ever going to come out of that stock. Increase in stock value, right? That differential cash flow. And so what I'm going to pay to sell it for in the future. Plus I have to pay for all the dividends that we're going to pay, right? All discounted back to now. If I sell it to you later, you have to pay me for all the ones forever. So what I get to keep is the ones during my holding period, okay? So that's how I prefer to evaluate it, or think about it. Okay, anyway, so what's the other piece? It might be payments, right? So we can add payments to this. So what do we call a payment? Where it's the same payment. By the way, if they're different payments every time, they are different present value problems, right? You have to calculate the present value of each of them, add them all up, right guys? They're in different periods. You guys know this stuff, I think. Okay, what do we call it though if we have exactly the same payment every period? An annuity. And what else has to happen? Every period, no period skipped. It will have to be the same payment if you skip a period. But anyway, all right. So there's always a payment, right? It's always the same payment. And the interest rate doesn't change. Yeah, got to have the interest rate not change. If I change the interest rate on you, what did I do? I broke the annuity. Might you have two annuities? 10 years at 6%, and another 5 years at 8%? Sure, but it's two annuities. Don't try to work it as one. And a lot of students try to do that, and you'll go nuts. Right? You can't. Okay? So the interest rate have to stay the same. So we call these things annuities, and we call it an annuity payment, wouldn't we? You know, annuity payment, two ways you can have the annuity payment. What could they be? Yeah, that's it. Okay, either at the end of the period or the beginning of the period. End or beginning. And we name those what? Well, they're rents. That's the amount of the payment is also called a rent. It's okay. But what would it end, what kind of an annuity is the payment at the end of the period? What's that? That's an ordinary annuity. Okay, so this is the ordinary one, guys. Or, I guess, ordinarily payments are at the end. Well, if you borrow money or something, yeah, ordinarily the payments are at the end. Maybe that's where that comes from. I don't even know. Okay, at the beginning, what do we call it? Right now, so it is due. Yeah. So that one's pretty easy to remember, right? Ordinary and due. End of the period is ordinary, beginning is due. And we were talking about that just when you came in earlier, just for a second. What happens with the number of periods? Well, if I'm calculating the future value of something, right? What's going to happen if the payments are at the beginning versus the end? If I'm calculating the future value, if they're at the beginning, if it's due, I add another period, right? What if I'm calculating with the payments at the end? I subtract a period of interest, right guys? Payments at the end, there's no interest on the last payment if you're doing future values, right? Because it came at the end. But there is interest on an annuity due because it came at the beginning. Okay? So that's how you shift the 1 year. How about if I'm doing present values and I'm discounting, taking the interest out? If the payments are at the end, I have to add a period for that, right? So it's the reverse. Okay, and that kind of drives people crazy. Okay? And what if it's a let's see, that's an ordinary, okay? If it's due, what's that? Well, you subtract the period, right? The first thing is write it out. Okay, you got it? One less period discount. Okay, anyway. So just in terms of how you think about this stuff, I think that's the way to go. Okay? So anyway, now what did I do? There we go. Go give those a shot, please. Go ahead, get numbers. Get numbers. You use your table. You want the tables. I screwed up your quiz again. There's one column that's not in there for some reason. 9% or 7% or something. What is it, 7? So of course I put 7 on the quiz, and then I put 18 on the quiz. I don't know where I got that. All right, anyway, so I changed it, so when I hand you the quiz next time, it is next time, right? Tomorrow. Oh, it's Thursday. Oh, that's right, we got another day. That's really good, isn't it? Yeah, probably. Yeah, sorry. Pancake. What? Yeah, no, okay, it's Thursday. Anyway, when I gave you the quiz, I changed them all, because there's only 11 of them, so I wrote it in red. It did every number. So anyway, I don't know why that table's like that. But give these a shot. Use your table, use your calculator, I don't care. As long as you know what the calculator's doing. Don't just do it magic.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you're pushing, you have a calculator something. So I get 10 periods.
Yeah, so if it's due and you're doing present value, it's going to be more value, right? Present value of an annuity. This is ordinary, but if you wanted an annuity due, yes.
So that's what I did, is I tried to subtract the period for that.
I think you add a period. You add a period because there's the ordinary annuity and present value. Present value of an ordinary annuity, you're discounting. Ordinary, you discount more.
Yeah, you subtract.
Yeah, yes.
But the number that I'm giving you subtracting, which is the same. 5.75 isn't the same as if I had the,
Oh, you gotta add 1 to it too. Subtracted period, you have 1.0, right? Because the due is worth 1.0. Now you subtract the period, so you have fewer periods, but you have to add the 1 for the first payment.
okay, so.
That makes sense?
Yeah, so
On an annuity due, the first payment is right now, so that's 1.
7.5
You got
as
it.
opposed to 5.75. Just one right here.
You got it. Yeah,
Okay.
see it?
Thank you.
Okay. If you subtract a year, you gotta add a year back. That's all.
Okay. There's just no interest for that year.
Yeah, yeah. Did we get rid of all the turkeys? Somebody think that last? Oh, that can give you your twist. Somebody eat that damn turkey. Come on. They're really good. I didn't realize you were trying to get too.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. It's like, yeah, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. That's sure. Sure, it's not. Sure. Well, we have had a couple of certificates of success to do that. We had one guy that took 3 advanced classes at a time. One, yeah, 3. And then the next semester he only took 1. The certificates, dude, it's hilarious. And he survived. He's like, this is just class. I'm not doing this. So I'm like, you do 2? No, I'm doing 1 first. He didn't get it at all. He was even 212. That's the other. Yeah. There is beautiful.
One of my friends is in 313, you know James Zamora, he's in 211 last semester. He's in 313 right now, and he hasn't taken 212 yet, and he's such a bad.
Struggling with that. Yeah. It makes 212 easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not very enjoyable.
Yeah. There's just too many chunks missing. Assumptions you don't say. Everybody got it? You got an answer to it? Good. Everybody got it? Waste of time. Yeah, first bit is, get that home study there, and I always try to listen to it. And usually just have to go back. One time. You get to really concentrate.
Yeah, but putting the little problem.
Let's see you doing it. Everybody got some sort of number for mom? Need a couple more minutes. Just telling me a couple more minutes. I recommend setting these up the same way every time, just because you're less apt to screw it up, I think, if you do that. And the author doesn't really do that, I don't know why. Everybody does it different, whatever works comfortably for you. Okay, anyway, so let's do the first one. What'd you do? What kind of number did you get anyway? What do we got?
35,218.
35218. Okay, how did you get that? That's the present value. What do we know? We know what? Future value is how much? 100,000, right? Okay, and I'd like to know the present value. So the future value is when?
10 years.
10 years from now. Present value is the time now. Okay, all right. So anyway, so what we're going to do is discount that. So it's 1 over what? 1 plus the interest rate raised to the number of periods, which is 10. Okay, so this is in each case, right, guys? 10. Okay, and the interest rate. What did we say it was? What did I say it was? 11%. So it's 1 over 1.11. Calculated that times 100,000. 1 over 1.11 raised to the 10th. All right. So if you look at your table, 11% 10 periods, they calculated 1 over 1.11 raised to the 10th. Now, what's that factor? Did you do it that way, or did you just calculate it to calculate it? I don't care. Is that on the table? Yeah. Okay. So what's the 35 cents? It's what each dollar is worth. If I invest 35 cents for 10 periods at 10% compound interest, first period you'll earn, or 11%, I'm sorry. The first period you'll earn about a little over 35 cents, right? And you'll add it to it. Whoops. 3.5 cents, 35 cents plus 3.5 cents. And then you'll earn a little more the next period, a little more the next period. And you keep compounding, right? Adding interest on the principal plus the interest. You keep compounding it. What'll that 35 cents turn into? $1. You'll make 65 cents interest. Everybody has this intuitively, right? It's just not a big deal. Okay? So but I'm not gonna get $1 at the end, which is worth 35 cents. Now I'm gonna get 100,000. So you take your 100,000 times your 35 cents, and you'll get your 35,218. And that's all there is to it. Now you know how to calculate this, but do you think this way? Do you think 100,000 received 10 years from now, if you need to earn 11% interest, is really only worth 35,218 bucks? Your mind worked that way. You need to get there, right? It sounds like a really huge return, doesn't it? But what if this investment, the risk level justifies 15%? 35,000 is not nearly enough. You got it? And at 15%, this is worth a lot less than 35,000. Okay? You get a very high interest rate, very many periods, and it looks tiny. You just can't beat, right? Okay? So, anyway, all right. What's the second one? By the way, do we care what the number is? Do we care what the present value, future value, interest rate, number of periods is? Not in the least. Not in the least. Oh, one other thing. If this was semi-annual, what would you have? You double the periods, so now I have how many periods? 20. And what would be my interest rate? Cut it in half, 5.5. Everybody got it? Okay. If it's quarterly, 4 times the number of periods. We have 40 periods, right, guys? And we cut the interest rate to 1/4. There it is. Okay.
If you get like a pocket app interest rate, do you get that have to use the formula as opposed to using the table?
Yeah, or find a table with it on it.
Yeah.
Yes, you'd have to use the formula, or use your calculator. Calculator could care less. Calculators use the formula. Okay. Program and calculator. We used to not have computers or calculators. When I first started working, handheld calculators were a new thing. That was our brand new. It's really cool. Everybody had that. And so you could add, subtract, multiply, divide calculators. That's about it. So being able to do something like you can now with a cheap calculator wasn't possible. Okay. So what we had were these books, or what they had previously, with like tissue paper in it. Basically, it was so thin, and they have page after page after page with all the number of periods you can imagine, and all the number of interest rates you can imagine. So you can always go look it up. But you have to do a great big huge book to do it. computers are nice. So, by the way, would I ever use a table in real life to calculate this stuff? Of course not. You got Excel. Why would you do that, right? You got your calculator. But I like you guys using the tables because you can see it happen. When we look at the table, you can see what compounding really does, right? It's hard to get your head around what's going on inside a calculator or inside a computer. But if you look at those tables, you can see it's not intuitive, is it? What 15% growth does in 30 years is just not intuitive, but it's really nice. Real stuff. Yeah, 12. Okay. So we'll go through that before we're done too, a little bit. All right, anyway, so how would you calculate this one? Future value. What is the future value? So this time I'm calculating the future value, and it's just my preference. I like to set them up like this. Future value number of periods from now is what? The present value now times what? 1 plus the interest rate, right guys? To the number of periods. Everybody knows this, don't you? Okay, so I'd like to know the future value. We're doing number 2 here. I'd like to know the future value of 100,000 invested. So it's 100,000 now. A lot of the problem is reading very carefully what you're looking at. What do they give you? What information do I have? Where am I at now? What do I need to know? All right, so what is this? 12% I gave you that time? 1.12, right? Raised to, what did I say, 10 periods again? Yes. Okay, so what is that worth? What do you get for your future value? 12%, 10 periods, what is 100,000 periods? 310? 059?
Yeah.
Okay, so 1.12 raised to the 10th must be 3.10059 maybe? If you go to the table, you find something real close to that, is that right? Future value of a sum, right? Oh, by the way, you use a present value of a sum table if you know the future and you're trying to calculate the present, right? You use the future value of the sum table if you are calculating the future and you know the present. See that right? Present value of the sum, future value of the sum. Okay? Everybody's comfortable with this. It's just not a big deal. You could do these in your sleep. I'm going to actually give you points for this. Okay? Like 1 each. But anyway, I'm going to give you points for doing this. On the quiz, on the test, and on the final, and we will in the CPA exam too. Okay? We value everything this time. So it's really critical that you understand it. All right, good. Let's try the third one. Present value of 10 payments of $100,000 to be received at the end of each year. Okay, so what kind of an annuity do we have here? End of each year? Ordinary, isn't it? Got to know that. Got to read carefully. And the wording will always be different. Big deal. Right? When does the cash change hands? End of the year is what? Ordinary. Beginning of the year, or beginning of whatever period you got, month, whatever it is. Okay? Semi-annual. What's that? That's a due. Okay? And it just affects how much interest there is by one period, huh? Okay, so here we are. 10 payments of $10,000 to be received at the end of each year. And on these, unless using a formula is a real pain, but the formula's there. You can use the formula if you want. Or maybe using the table is easier with these, unless you have a nice calculator that does an annuity, right? And that's fine. Okay. All right. It's doing exactly what the formula does. So how would we set this up? I have a what? Annuity payment, and it's an ordinary annuity payment, so you could say ordinary annuity payment. End of the period. It's 10,000. Now always keep track of how many dollars I'm valuing here. It's 10 payments of 10,000. How much am I valuing? I'm not valuing $10,000. What am I valuing, you guys? 100,000. Absolutely. So if I'm calculating the present value of it, right? Is it going to be more or less than $100,000? Less than 100. What do you bet it's more than 10 now? So, be thinking when you do this. Don't just grab some number off a table and calculate it and give you some ridiculous answer like students do over and over and over. Okay? Don't do that. It's got, it's got to be something less than 100, though. It's not more. Why is it not more than 100? That's got to be a future value. You're adding interest. We're going to take interest out here. We're calculating the present value. Okay, what we really need to do, what we could do, is we could discount 10,000 for one period, right? Because I'm getting the first payment at the end of one period, right? Ordinary annuity. I could value that at 10% for one period, right? Discount. And then I can do the second one at 10% for two periods. I can do the third one for 10% for three periods. I'll have the last one at 10% for, I guess, 10 periods, right? And then I can add them all together. Or I can go to the table where they added the factors together for me. Or I can use a formula that adds the factors together for me. Right? That's all it is. Sum in the formula. Right? That's it. Okay? So what's easier? To take this one $10,000 payment times 10 different factors and add them all up? Or add up the factors, let the table add up the factors, or the calculator add up the factors, and only make one multiplication. I like one better. Everybody does. So if it's an annuity, let it be an annuity. So what if I give you an annuity for 10 years and another annuity for 15 and another one for 12? What would you do? Treat each one as an annuity, but then what do you got? Those are out in the future sometime. Now what you've done is you've calculated a present value at the beginning of that annuity term, right? And what do you need to do? Discount those back to now as a lump sum, right? So that's all you do if the interest rate changes. It's not a big deal. Okay? What if I do the future value? Exactly the same thing. You calculate the future value at the end of that period, right? Whatever that annuity period is. And if you want to know what it's going to be worth sometime out in the distant future, compound it for that number of periods as a lump sum. Get the future value of it. I'm going to give you the opportunity to do this. Pull your hair out that way. I'll give you a problem for the
There's a flexible interest rate, do you just take the first period and the first interest rate and then the second and a half?
Well, if there's a, you mean if it's changing in the contract,
Flexible.
then you've got a new annuity every time it changes.
Okay.
But if, let's say there's a variable interest rate and you don't know what's in it. What would you do if you're estimating the future with a variable interest rate? We do that, by the way, with valuation. I'm going to value the stock at the stock market. What assumption do I have to make? What's the interest rate going to be? What are the earnings going to be? Well, what I use is what I think the stock market's earned over the last 30 years or something. Right? And my best guess of what's going to happen next year is what happened in prior years. That's, of course, not going to happen. Right? The stock market goes up about 12% per year over time. It just has. But some years it's gone down 30%. Some years it's gone almost double. Wow, maybe not double. Well, I guess that has some years. Right? Okay. Right before George Bush ceased to be president, the bottom fell out of the stock market, right? Big banking scandal. And, you know, the bottom fell out of the stock market, everybody lost confidence. It just nosedived. In about 3 months, my wife and I lost half of our wealth. Which wasn't so about anyway. She thought it was wealth, but I was telling them all along, it's not worth that, it's not worth that, it's not worth that, it's way overvalued. Well, the bottom fell out, right? And went way down. Well, 3 years later, 4 years maybe, it had all recovered. Right? And now we're way over. Well, you know, so what happens year to year is hard to tell. But over time, over a long period of time, you can sort of guess what's going to happen. Okay. What's really fun is with the dot-com nonsense and with the all the fads that come through, and all internet business in general, and the change with the way banking was working, or it really wasn't working, with electronic trading, all kinds of things that come through. Everybody thinks computers. Everybody thinks the world has fundamentally changed every single time. So we actually had people come in here in the IMBA program, Executive MBA program, when I first started here at Mellon, from GE, from Humana, from UPS, you name it. They were coming in here and they were all saying, no, we have to show a 15% with low risk return, or a 25% return with high risk, or we can't get projects done. What? You're going to get 25% forever off of investments? Are you kidding me? No, you're not. The only investments that pay off that sort of expected return are gambling. Right? What kind of investments are you guys doing? Jeez. You know, there's nothing that does that. Nothing does that. In a business, if you get 8 or 10%, you're really doing good. Right? To the level of risk that they're willing to assume. Okay? You know, That's not gonna happen. And you know what they did? They built all their projects assuming that sort of return, right? So what they did was they built cash flows that would give them that sort of return on the investment so they could get the investment approved, knowing full well that they're never gonna get there. This is really dangerous because you're not gonna be able to get those returns, right? But you get to keep your job and you get to fund projects and you get to do the projects and you keep going. And everybody knows it's smoke and mirrors. But then what happened was the accountants then were encouraged to pretend they got the earnings they hadn't got. What do you think of that one? So let's promise something that's impossible and then let's give them a financial statement that says we achieved the impossible. And companies were doing it. It was the game. No wonder the market collapsed, right? It was all a lie. But it was almost an intentional lie. But the bosses were saying, no, you gotta have 20, 15, 20, 25%. Crazy. And everybody, and in the class we go through this stuff, you know, we talk about it, and then there was Dan Bauer, and we're like, well, just tell them no, that's impossible. No, you're fired. No, you're fired, I got a mortgage. It's gotta work to make it work. Right? So, yeah. So anyway, by the way, did companies learn on that one when the bottom fell in the stock market? Big time. Then it went from trying to double your wealth every few years, which is 25% you would, right? Before compounding 25%. Yeah, it doesn't take long. How long does it take you to double your wealth here in 12 years? Double your money? 4 or 5 years. 6 and 7. Yeah. And that's how long it takes to double your money. I'm 63, I'm going to retire at 70. If the market performs normally, I will be twice as rich when I retire as I am right now. Plus everything I can possibly do in my retirement. Yeah. If that happens, it'll be a nice retirement. The bottom falls out. I'm not cashing out anyway, it doesn't matter. Oh, that's the other thing I don't understand. People cashing out and taking money and putting it in something that's not just low risk. You know what you get with low risk?
Low reward.
Low. How long are you going to live after you retire? I'm over for 20 years. That's not. You'll be 70s. I can semi-retired now, so it's all right. This is kind of retirement. But I do for a living. Find something you like to do after retirement. My brother retired in his mid-50s, and he's still having a really good time. He volunteers, does a whole bunch of stuff, hikes a lot. Okay, anyway. So how would we value this guy? How would we value this $100,000? What would you do? I got this payment of $10,000. What do I take at times to get its present value? I'm going to want to get a ordinary annuity factor, right? Do I want a present value or future value one? Yeah, I'm calculating present value over here. I want a present value. So you just go to the present value of an ordinary annuity table, right? And you get what? 10 periods for 10 payments, right? And there's also interest for 10 periods. And 10%, everybody agree with that? Okay, so it's N equals 10, and interest rate equals 10, because it's made of both 10. Okay, and what is that factor? By the way, would you expect that factor to be more or less than 10? Because you're valuing $10 here. Cash payment stream of $1 per period for 10 periods. What do you think it is? More or less. It's got to be less, right? Okay, because you're taking interest out. If you're in future value, what would you expect? More than 10. Yeah, don't get the wrong one. Okay, don't get on the wrong table. So what factor is that? Present value and ordinary annuity factor. What'd you guys find?
3.1446.
3.3?
That's right. I don't know why I said 3. It's 6.1.
I was going to say that just seems
I have no idea why.
low. Seems really low. I didn't think the interest rate was that. Okay, here we go. What was it?
6.1446.
6.1446. Okay, that's 10 present value factors added together, right? 1 period, 2 period, 3 period, 4 period. In fact, you could go to the present value of a sum table and look at it and add up the first 10 and you will get this real close, okay? This number's more accurate. The roundings out of it, okay? Everybody got it? Okay? So what's worth $6.14? 10 bucks. $1 received at the end of each period for 10 periods. That 10 bucks is worth $6.14. How much interest would you earn? If you invest $6.14 and you get back 10. 386. This is simple, right? There's nothing to this, okay? And I know all of you don't think that way yet. And you got to get so you do really fast, okay? So that's the present value thing, huh? Okay. So then let's try a couple more. Oops. There we go. Okay. One in between. There it is. There it is. Why is it adding? I think I can pull it out. There we go. Okay. All right. Okay, so same as 3, but the payments at the beginning of each year. What would you expect to happen with this thing? Payments are at the beginning of each year. And you're doing what? Calculating your present value. So you're taking interest out. Is there going to be more or less interest? Less. You're not waiting for it, right? Okay, there's going to be less interest, isn't it? Okay. So you're going to expect this one to be what? In fact, coming up with a factor would be pretty easy. We had $6.14. 10% interest, is that what we had? How would you convert that into an annuity due factor? One less period interest, one less period discount. How would you convert it? I like this better than going one period and adding one or subtracting one. What do you do? Take that factor and do what to it? Compute the factor. 6.14, and we're suggesting there will be less interest. We compounded one period more than we wanted to now, because we're going to do an annuity due instead of an ordinary due. What do you do? I want one period less interest. Take 6.14 times what? 1.10. And you get rid of one of the periods of interest, won't you? What is that factor? 6.14 times 1.10.
6.751.
Yeah, and what'd you have on the annuity due? What was the annuity due factor? You didn't have a table for that one?
No, I didn't use it.
Oh, you didn't use the table, so you didn't get a factor.
Yeah, 6.75.
So it came out the same. We do have that. We're missing the other. Okay, the future factor. Okay, so yeah. So you can convert one table into the other. What do? If you want one less period, take it times 1 plus the interest rate. If you want one more period, what would you do for present values? Divided by 1 plus the interest rate. You can go from either one of those tables to the other one really easy, right? I prefer that method. Or you can slide 1 year and add 1 or subtract 1, depending on which direction you're going. Okay? It's hard to remember. Okay. So what do we do with this one? This time I have an annuity due at the beginning of the period, right? An annuity due payment. Great. What was it, 10,000? I'm still valuing $100,000, right, guys? And I'm going to take it times what? A present value of an annuity due. Get on the right table. And if you don't have that table, you can compute it, couldn't you? Okay, but if you go look it up on the table, what'd you get? N equals 10. I equals 10%. We don't care what the interest rate is. We don't care what the number of periods is. It doesn't make any difference. We don't care what the annual payment is. Okay? It doesn't make any difference. So we got the present value. Just the calculations are exactly the same. What's that factor? You know what you could have done? You could have taken 1 for the first one, because it's right now, and then you could add the factor for 1 period, 2 periods, 3 periods, up to 9, right? And that give you those 9 periods, plus the 1 for $1 now, it's $1 now, and you'll get that factor, right? Everybody understands this. Just not a big deal. So did everybody get 67,590 for this one? And you'd earn less interest, wouldn't you? How come? That's 1 less period, right? If you invest 67,590, you get back 100, right? Okay. Of course, you have to pay more for it. Okay. So that's 4. Let's try 5. This time I got 20 deposits of 8,000 invested at year end, and I want to earn, because I want the future value, right? I want to earn 8%. So what do? What kind of an annuity is this thing? That's ordinary. What's this one going to be? Due. And that'll just jump out at you, you guys. Now, I know it might be buried in a couple paragraphs, but it does. When did the payments happen? Okay? So what I've got is, and I like to set them up exactly the same as I said every single time. So however you want to do it. The author does the division, don't they? They put the payment over here, and then they divide it by the factor, and that'll equal the present value. That's fine. It's okay. However you want to do it, but what I'd recommend is do it the same way every time. Okay? So I guess multiplying is easier for me or something. All right, so this is going to be what? What is this? An ordinary. This one, the next one, 5, was an ordinary annuity payment. And the only difference is now, of course, I'm going to calculate a future value 20 periods from now. Okay? In number of periods from now. Okay? So I'm going to take that times what? A future value of an ordinary annuity, right? Do we have that table?
Question about the last one.
Yeah.
So we're paying in.
We're giving them the 67,590.
So wouldn't we be getting more interest if we're paying in at the beginning of the year?
No, they're giving us the first payment, though, right at the same time we make our investment, which is weird, but sometimes happens.
Oh, okay.
I give them the 67, they immediately give me back cash. I really only gave them 57. All right. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. That's it. Right. Good. Good. Okay. So it's how long do they have the money sitting out there?
Yeah.
So I earn interest or pay interest for the period of time the money's out. Right.
Okay.
That's all it really amounts to. But getting your head around that stuff.
Yeah.
The way they structure these deals. And I think people structure deals on purpose to confuse people they're doing business with. I know banking industry does that. Right? Leasing industry is just falling. So we have laws to stop to make people tell you what the real interest rate is. Always pay attention to real interest rate, not the rate that's advertised. Because when they're advertised doesn't mean anything, right? And who cares what the payment is? That's an amazing thing. Car dealers always want to know how big a payment can you afford. And I always say, well, so I have to make a payment for what? 2 months or 100 years? And then they stop. Give me a break for how big a payment is. You care less how big the payment is. That doesn't matter. I care how much I actually have to pay, right? What's the interest rate? That's really what I care about. Right? That's all. How do you decide if you want to lease or buy? When you buy an automobile, which one's cheaper? Really, which one has a lower interest rate? That's all. Right? Which one has a lower interest rate? What's really funny is they try to encourage leasing business, so they'll put a really low interest rate on the leases. And if you borrow money, it'd be for hire, not necessarily. You can do it for individuals sometimes. Yeah, if you have good credit, sure, I'll lease, save the money, right? So, it depends on what the interest rate is. When my wife bought a Volvo, it was kind of funny. She shopped around online, basically, and looked for it, and then she went and drove a couple of them, and I'd never even driven one. Her car. And so she said, my husband's coming with me because he needs to sign the papers, but you cannot change anything. We're just going to sign our name, and we are going to leave. And I'd never seen a car before. In fact, she didn't even drive it. I tell you guys that. They said, well, don't you want to test drive it? And says, there's something wrong with it. It's like buying a refrigerator. I wouldn't test drive that either. It's a product. So it says, it doesn't make it home. We're in license. It says, if it doesn't make it home, you get it back. Right? Yeah, if it runs fine, it runs fine. She's driven them. She likes them. It's fine. And so anyway, we drive away with the thing. But this sales manager was hilarious. He says, I really do have to ask you one thing. I know you didn't want to hear anything, but I have to ask you one thing. He says, if you get life insurance on yourself on this car, because I'm getting older, right? I guess. If you get life insurance, we can lower the interest rate enough so that you're going to pay this much less for the car. And I started laughing. I says, well, that was kind of a no-brainer. He says, yeah, I didn't want you to not have that. So dramatically lower the interest rate to buy the life insurance. So life insurance was less than free. We paid to buy the life insurance, right? So all I care about is how much I pay for something, right? Always think in those terms. but it's not how many dollars you give, right? Because if I can have you give me money now, and I give you more money later, and I pay you a really low interest rate, I win big. If I get you to loan me money at 2% and earn 6 with it, I get real rich, right? And that's what the game is, kind of. Okay, but anyway, so how much was the payment? 8,000? Okay, N is 20. I is what? 8%. Okay, so here we go. What would you do? Go look up a factor, future value of an ordinary annuity. Do we have that?
Probably we have ordinary annuity, we don't have future value, and we can do.
Okay, ordinary annuity we do have. So how much is that? $20 periods, 8%. Anybody use the table? Everybody use your calculator.
It's 45.
176, 196.
Okay, what's worth $45?
There's no zero, it's just 45.
45, 76196. Okay, so what's worth $45.76? $20. That's what it's going to grow to, right? It's an ordinary annuity payment. You put in the payment at the end, and then it starts growing, right? Okay. So does that make sense to you guys? You earn $25, almost $26 interest off of it. Is that doable in that period of time? 8% is not that high an interest rate. But you're more than doubling your money, right? Quite a number of periods. Okay, 20 periods. So what does that 8,000 become? And really, we're not talking about 8,000. What are we talking about? It's 160,000. What's it going to grow to in 20 periods at 8%? And we're putting in the payment at the end of the period, right? So how much is that?
695.69.
Oh, 96 maybe. Yeah. Okay. Everybody got it? Does that make sense? And the interest you'd earn is the difference between 366 and 160, of course. Well, let's try 6 then. What do you do here? Now it's an annuity due payment, right? Okay. You didn't have this table. This is the one they left out for some reason. I don't know why. They exist, of course. So we're still valuing the 160,000, right? But this time we want the future value of a what? Annuity due. That's all there is to it. So get yourself organized, right? Start thinking in these terms. We're going to have future value in 20 periods. This is going to be more or less interest. We're making the deposits at the beginning of the year instead of the end. Which way are we going? More or less interest. Could be more. I put the payment in at the beginning of each year instead of the end of each year. Am I going to earn more or less? Earn more. How much more? 8% one time on every single one of the payments. How can you convert that factor? You got it. Take 45.76196. Take that times 1.08, and what factor do you get? Somebody want to do that for me? 45.76196. Take that times 1.08. 8% interest, right? One period. How much is that?
49.4229.
4229.
Yes.
Okay. Does that make sense? You got one more period of interest on every single one of them. Every single one of the payments, huh? Okay. What's another way you get that to that 49.4229? 4229. What would you do on the table? Go down a period, right? One more period, and subtract 1.0. Did that do it? Did I give you that number? Yeah, that works too. Nice little track out. Okay. Easy. So how much is 8,000? How much is 160,000 going to grow to if we put the payments into the beginning? 49.4229 times 8,000. How much is that?
395,383.35.
Something like that. you take 366,096 times 1.08 and get that number? Yeah, it doesn't matter when you do the multiplication, but do the same thing. Or could you take the 395, 383 and divide by 1.08 and get back to the 366? Yeah. Nothing to this, is there? Nothing to it. Okay, so let's do something fun then. Let me give you one that might be entertaining for you. Maybe. You're gonna retire someday. I'm gonna do one of these on either the quiz or the test or the final, or maybe two of them. All right. So let's say you guys are 22 years old when you graduate. And you start work. Okay. Probably pretty close. Let's say for how many years do you want to work? One. But I don't know, how many years might you work? 40 years? Retire at 62? Okay, good. Let's do 40. Give me 45. Okay, let's do 45. You're more realistic. You're gonna live to 100. You gotta save an awful lot of money to live that long. This is a big mistake we're making. Extending lifespan is not a good thing. You're just gonna have Alzheimer's and sit not knowing who you are, right? In some rest home someplace that's taking all the money you ever accumulated all your life and giving it to them. What is that about? I guess it's good for the economy, but it's just stupid, you know. We really need euthanasia, only it should be self-select, right? You know, so, but then, I don't know, you have Alzheimer's, you don't know to pull the plug on yourself. So anyway, that's the problem. Anyway, my dad says that. He has lucid moments. The mornings he's pretty good. The afternoons he's pretty bad. It's kind of like, wow, you know, I don't know if I'm enjoying my life or not, because I don't remember any of it. Do I seem like I'm having a good time? So, well, yeah, you do, Dad. Oh, well, then it must be all right. I'm not ready yet. Right? He always says he's ready to go anytime. He's 88. He says, I'm ready to go anytime, just not today. Maybe tomorrow. Yeah, sounds pretty funny. And so, anyway, we're living too long. So, yeah. So you're 22. Let's do 3 15-year periods. Okay? 15 years, so it's the first 15 years, you got the idea? And then the second 15 years, and then the third 15 years, and then you get to retire, all right? That'll be 67. So you're going to be 67 years old when you retire, okay? And you guys are going to be making, I don't know, $50,000 a year. So let's say that the first 15 years you put in $5,000 per year, okay? And let's do it at the end of each year so you can earn it first, okay? And then, by then you've doubled your income, and you get $10,000 per year. You plug it in there. And then you double it again, so you're going to put in $20,000 per year at the end. And this looks like quite a bit of money, doesn't it? Okay? In fact, and that's it, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to tell me how much you have when you retire. Future value of the whole thing at the end of 45 years, I guess, huh? Of all those together. So how much money is this 5,000? What's 5,000 times 15? What am I asking you to value, you guys? That's 75 grand, right? What's 10,000 times 15? That's 150,000. What's 20,000 times 15? That's 300,000. How much am I suggesting you would indeed invest? $525. Always figure out the reality of the situation, okay? So, a future value of this is going to be more or less than $525,000. It's going to be a lot more. Okay, there's a piece missing. I told you that you're going to make all the deposits at the end. So, end of year. So, what are these things? It's 3 different ones, but what are they? Ordinary annuities, right? It's 3 different ordinary annuities. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to get the future value of each of those at the end of each of those 15-year spans. But then I want you to project that into the future so that it's when you are 67 years old, right? It's going to be 67 years old. You're going to still be really young then. You guys, I'm 63. You think I should? Well, you probably do think I should quit. But you know, I'm not on my last legs. It's okay. I'm planning on running a marathon. 20 pounds. I run another marathon. I asked my doctor if it was okay because my kids think it's going to kill me. And she says, what? What do you mean, is it okay? You're really young. She's like, I got old people's patients too. Of course you're going to run a marathon. You'll probably die earlier if you don't want to run one. You won't get rid of that weight, right? So, yeah. So, let's see if I can get it done. I've been planning to for about 4 or 5 years. Yeah. It's just too much bourbon, too much good food. It's really hard. Yeah, okay, anyway. So, one other piece. I want you to do one other thing. I want you to find out the future value of this whole thing. And then I want you to buy yourself an annuity for the rest of your life because suddenly you went crazy, right? But you have to decide how long you're going to live. So how many more years you want? 30? That's 97. That's enough, huh? Okay, let's buy a 30-year. You're going to live 30 more years. I'm sorry, it might, okay? I'll probably make it to 90. You're probably going to make it to 100. I'm sorry, it's awful. Okay, so 30 years. No room for more people. Overcrowded. Okay, so you're going to buy an annuity for life. You want to know one more thing. So on this, I'd like to know what the annuity payment is. Oh, and when do you want to take the money out? At the beginning of the year or the end of the year? You're going to live on it. We just made a deposit at the end of a year. Let's make it at the beginning of the year. What kind of an annuity is that then? Do. Yeah, it's just too easy. All right, gang. So come up with that payment, okay? I'd like to know that payment. All right, and I'd like to know this future value.
What's the interest?
Oh, you want to know that? Yeah, that's the piece you need. Absolutely. Excellent. Okay, that's excellent. Okay, well, I don't know. Let's say we're going to earn what we're going to put in the stock market in a fully diversified investment, and we think we're going to earn 12% all these years, because that's what the market has been earning, right? It went up to about 13, and everybody thought, it's going to be 15 forever, right? Then the bottom fell out of the market and went down to 11. Now it's back to 12. It's got normal again, okay? Over time, right? Went way down and went back up. So anyway, let's say about 12%, okay? And then we're going to get real conservative here. So let's say on this one, I only want to earn, I'm willing to live with, 4%. This is for crazy people. I would leave it at 12. Yeah. Okay? So for the annuity for life, you only get 4%. You get 12% on all those annuities. We're going to leave it in there at 12. It's always 12. And while it's growing, up until I'm 67, it's at 12. And then when I retire, I'm going to take home 4. Because I don't want the money to go away. You know, the bottom fall of the market, I don't want to be that risky. 4% is far less risky, right? That's really low risk. Yeah.
So what's the unit? Are you just taking all the money that you earn?
Oh, yeah. I figure out how much I'm worth when I'm 67, right? Okay? At the end of 45 years, when I retire, the day I retire, how much money do I have? And then I immediately buy this annuity, right? So I want to know what? I do know the present value. That's going to be how much money I have there. That's the present value, and I want to know how much my annuity payment is going to be. What do I get to take? And I'm going to take the payment because I want to go travel around the world the first day, right? I'm taking off. So I want the whole year's for the first day. Make it simple. Like the month here. Can you do this? What would you do? Go. Go ahead and do it. 3 different annuities, valuable. But then realize where you're at. What year am I at? You have to get the future value of those first 2 when you're 67. The third one, you already know what it is at 67 because you'll have calculated it. Then after 3, you got it. So. Got to think you did all that easy stuff. Throws this in. How you coming?
We're buying our annuity for life with our earnings from the top annuity.
You bet. We're gonna invest all of it. It's not really for life, it's really for 30 years.
Right.
If you bought it for life, you get a lot less. Because they are taking a gamble. So then what happens is they actually determine how long they're going to live. Right? Then they give you a real low interest rate. And you're paying based on that. It's never a good deal. You're better at guessing how long you can live yourself. People pay for security, the sense of having less risk, even though they're not having less risk. People will pay for certainty too. It's amazing what they'll do. For sure get something versus 99% probability to really pay for that. A lot of money. With their risk aversion. Cranking right out for you. You're doing first 3 calculations. I want the future value of this annuity for 15 years, right? Future value of this one, the future value of this one. This one then is already out to the end of 45 years, right? Because it's from year 31 to 45, right? Okay. This one you're going to have to compound then at 12% for 15 years to get it to the end, because it's just at the end of year 30, right? This one's just at the end of year 15. You're going to have to compound that one for 30 years to get it to the end of 45. And then you add the future value of this one, compound at the end of 45 years, plus this one, compound at the end of 45 years, plus this one that's already at the end of 45 years. And you'll know what the whole 525 will grow to by the end of 45 years, right? You'll have it. That's the first stage. That's this. Okay? Then you take that amount and you treat that as a present value at that time, right? And you discount, or you figure the annuity payments you're going to get at 4%, right? For 30 years, based on that present value. You know, the present value of the interest rate for periods. Did you get it? You get something that works? Okay. The hell are you guys doing? Okay, all right. Okay, first, just calculate the future value of that, 15 years. The future value of that, the future value of that. Do those 3. Do not add them together.
Did that.
Don't add them, just calculate each one independently. You don't want to add them together yet. Because one's at the end of 15, one at the end of 30, one at the end of 45. They're not the same thing. $1 is not $1. You guys, when I started working, I made $9,600 a year. You guys are going to make 50 grand. It's the same amount of money. Hard to get your head around that, isn't it? But it is. Okay. I used to think if I was a millionaire, I would be so rich. That's because middle-class people made $10,000 a year. Now that's minimum wage, kind of. Right, guys? Okay? There's still people saying, oh, God. Okay? And now a million, geez, that's not enough. I can't retire a million. Used to be you were rich. It's funny, too, because the government's so proud of themselves because they created so many millionaires. Well, we just should have more inflation. We'd have a lot more millionaires. We don't have 10 million if we get enough inflation going, right? That doesn't buy you anymore. Okay, but anyway, so everybody got those 3 done? You can do those, right? Exactly the same calculation. Okay, then as soon as you have this one, right, compound it for how many years? This is the end of 15 years. You want to be the end of 45. Take that lump sum that this grows to, that one sum, that one future value, and treat it then as a present value at that date, okay? And compound it for 30 periods, and you'll know what it's going to be worth at the end of 45. Because at the end of the 15 years, you're not going to start spending it. You're going to leave it at 12%, right? It's going to keep growing. It's sitting there, okay? And you got 30 more years. This one, what it's worth at the end of that 15-year stream, that future amount treated as a present value and compounded for just 15 years to get to the end of the 45. You with me? And then this one, it'll already be at the end of the 45 because it's the last 15 years, right? Then add those 3 future values together And that will give you the total you're gonna have when you're 67. You can project what you're gonna be worth at 67 if you invest this kind of money. And that's not very much to invest. Not really. You do this kind of stuff, you look at it. My wife and I put in 15% of what we make every year. Half. Long time. So, really nice. I wish I had done it when I was in public accounting, thinking real money. I blew that money. Stupid. Okay. I could have double the taxes. Okay. So this is going to make an amazing amount of money compared to this. It's crazy. Even though these are bigger numbers, huh? It's amazing what time does. But anyway, so, and then take it and build yourself an annuity, right? What's my annuity payment if I have the total amount here and I'm going to keep earning 12%? And it's for 30 more years, I'm going to hang on until I'm 97, I guess. And I'm going to spend the same amount of money every year for a while, whatever. Everybody grandkids will. Okay? And pay your expenses. So now do we got them? You guys aren't doing anything. You have the numbers. Okay, let's do the first one. Let's do the first one. Either that or you can work on this and we'll do it next time. I don't care. Go ahead and do it. Try. Okay. All right, so what do we know on the first one? Okay, number one. The first one. I've got a annuity. What kind of payment? Ordinary annuity payment, right guys? For how much? $5,000. I'm going to take that times what? Future value factor for a ordinary annuity, right guys? Interest rate, we said 12%. Number of periods is 15. I'm valuing that 75,000. So what's that factor? Go look it up. Future value of an ordinary annuity, what'd you get?
37.2797.
And if you multiply that times 5,000, what'd you get?
186,398,399.
399 about. 186,399. Okay, right guys? That's what you would have at the end of 15 years, right? This is a future value 15 years out. And I want to go 45 years out. So then just treat this as a present value, okay? So treat this thing now as a present value at that time and compound it for how long? At 12% for 30 periods. So take it times the future value factor, 12%, 30 periods, or just calculate it. How much?
29.9599.
29.
Oh, you want to, that was a factor. That wasn't
Oh, the factor is how much?
29.99. I lost it. 29.9599.
Okay, it's going to become 30 times that amount. Okay, everybody got it? That's real. Investing is a wonderful thing. Discipline yourself to do it. Don't buy a $40,000 car. Buy a $20,000 car for your first car. It won't be anywhere near as cool, and you can end up rich. And then you'll keep doing that. So we're going to take that 29.9599 times 186, right? Yeah. How much is that going to be? That's 30 times 186. Did you do it right?
Sorry,
5.5 million.
It's 5,584,487.
Anybody else get that number?
Yes.
Okay, there's the first one. Okay, let's do the second one. What would you do? It's another ordinary annuity payment, right guys? They're all ordinary annuity payments. Now it's 10 grand, isn't it? Okay, it's 12%. In is 15. What's the factor?
37.
It's the same one. Okay, 37.2797. Hopefully I won't make the periods exactly the same. It'd be pretty easy if I did, wouldn't it? It'd be nice. So what we're going to have here is what? 372,797. Okay, that's what I'm gonna have at the end of what? Let's start at the 16th year and go to the 30th, right? At the end of 30 years. I wanna compound this for what? 15, so it's 1.12 raised to the 15th. So what's that multiple? It's not intuitive, is it? It's nowhere near 30, is it? What is it? What's the number?
That's the factor.
The factor is what?
5.47356.
It's only 5.47 something? Really? Instead of 30 times, it's only 5.5 times? Yeah, maybe. Is that what you guys got? What's 5.47 times 372? What'll that second cash flow stream grow to? 5.1 what?
2040529.
Yeah. Holy cow, are you kidding me? This one grows to 5.6 million, that only grows to 2.0 million? Yes. And people who say, oh, I can't afford to invest are crazy. Could be. Right? They could have afforded to invest, I was just doing other stuff, getting divorced and stuff. Okay?
I'm gonna, like, quiz them test. Are you gonna tell us which one's around here? Because I feel like.
No, I won't care. You get close, you're close. I would round,
Like, yeah, which one's
yeah, I'd leave it in my calculator and calculate it,
all the way
and
up?
you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, you know, once you've got the I would round the 372, 797 to the nearest dollar is good enough. But then my factors, I'd leave in the calculator. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So you get fairly close. Yeah, don't round off to hundreds of thousands or something. No, I guess obvious. Okay, and then we've got one more, right? What's the third one? Same deal. Only this time it's 20,000. This isn't going to be worth much, is it? Times 37. And of course, if I give you different numbers of periods of time and I give you different interest rates, you have to look them up. But it's the same process. How much is that going to grow to?
745,594.
It's just double this one, isn't it? 745,594. Okay, and we're done with that one, right? Because that's 45 years out. That's when you're 67. So how much do I have in my account? What's my future value when I'm 67? 5584487 plus 2040529 plus 745,594. Everybody see it? So the future value, 45 years from now, of those three annuities all added together is what?
370,633, depending on how you round it.
All right. Now what we want to do is we kind of like to know what kind of an annuity we can buy. So I know my present value at that time, right? I know my present value when I'm 67 years old. Oh, when you're 67 years old. I'm long gone. Okay, anyway, so what do we do with this? This is 8370633, right guys? We've got some annuity payment. What kind do we want? Due or ordinary? Yeah, due. I want the money at the beginning of the period because I'm going to Europe. Everybody got it? Okay. And so what's this going to be? This is a present value of an annuity due factor. Interest rate? Careful. We're only going to get 4%. And the number of periods? I think I'm going to live 30 more years. What's that factor? By the way, is that thing more or less than 30? If I earned absolutely no interest, it'd be 30, right? If I earn a little interest, what would I expect to have? More, yes, right, yours, yes. Okay. So, less, so that's less, makes you pay more. Okay, so what's that factor? It's less than 30. Present value of an annuity due? 30 periods, 4%.
17.9837.
What's the difference between the 30 and the 18? The interest you're earning at 4%, right? It's not great interest, but you're earning 4%. So divide 17.9837 into 8370633, and you'll find out what your new payment's going to be. How much is that? What are you going to have to live on per year?
40.
How much?
465,455.
465. Yeah. Is that right? And what?
456.
456. Okay, let's do one more thing now. Be careful. That sounds good, doesn't it? Yeah, but that's pretty good investing, isn't it? You're doing a pretty good job. Okay. Let's say though that there is inflation averaging 3% per year, right? Lately it's been real low, but there have been some years it's real high. 3% is not bad inflation, right? It's been pretty low in recent history. But then we haven't had as big a returns either, because inflation typically gives back the return. But let's say there's going to be 3% inflation over time. That's really built into that 12%. Let's keep it 3 or 4% inflation probably. But let's say 3, okay? Let's say it's only 3. How much is that worth in today's dollars? Now what would you do? That's a future value, isn't it? I have a future value, right? Just in today's dollars, and each year it becomes worth less. You agree with that? Each year that you get the payment, it's worth 3% less, basically. Okay, so my future value is and when am I getting this money, the first payment? 45 years from now? It's $465,456. And I am getting that. I'd like to know what it would be in equivalent dollars today. I'm getting that 45 years from now, right, guys? So I want to calculate present value of a sum, don't I? Everybody agree?
Why 45 years?
I'm not getting the first payment for 45 years. I'm 22 when I start depositing, and I'm getting a first payment at 67, right? So 45 years?
Yeah.
Sound good? Okay, so N equals 45, and we said inflation is going to be 3%, right? So it's 1 over 1.03 raised to the 45th. Oh, what's that factor? What's 3% raised to the 45th?
But shouldn't it be the future value of 15 if we're talking about the second period when we're already 67?
No, I'm talking about what's that worth in today's dollars. Assume you were 22 right now, the day you started investing. What's that retirement worth that day? So assume you were 22 right now, and you're starting your career, you're out there starting to work, and you do this, right? Starting right now today. What is that 465,000 worth in today's purchasing power if we have 3% inflation? I'm just sucking inflation out, that's all I'm doing. So how much is it?
About $123,000.
Okay, that doesn't sound so good. Okay, but 123, you could live pretty good right now. You guys might think, oh gee, that'd be really nice. I think, well, okay. Certainly, 90 will be fine, right? Probably. Of course, it won't be worth as much on a 90 either, because you have the discount in another 30 years with close, another 27. It's amazing what that does. When you retire every year, you make less with inflation. It's probably like they're not inflation. Well, like they're not inflation. Just like real earnings, not inflation. Could you do this kind of stuff for me? Did it make sense? I don't think. I could add that though. I could add that last piece too, because that's really important. You think? The 465. You guys all smiled. I'm going to grab a lot of money, and then we realized it's this much. We're going to be upper middle class, right? Fair. That's not upper class. That's upper class. Right? You can start out 50. Do a really good job in 5, 6, 7 years. You can make 100. 5, 6, 7 years after that, you can make 200. You're going to retire with 123. That's although you won't wait so long to retire. But then you're going to have more years that you have to support yourself. So does it kind of make the point that you'd like to see investors? Oh, you get Social Security too. Right? I thought when I was a young man, though, that there'd be no Social Security. think they're gonna give me like $3,000 a month or something. Of course, if I worked to 70, they give me a lot more than if I worked to 67, which is much more than if I worked to 62 or 65 or whatever the other one is. To encourage you to do what? Work till you die, then I have to pay the Social Security. My kids are probably hoping that, what I have invested will still be there when I take off. We haven't told them how much it is, so. Go away. Put your ass in Is this fun? Come on, fun. Is this useful to know how to do? Yeah, and by the way, could you do the present value version of this instead of the future value version? How about if I projected it? There's some neat props in the book. Do a bunch of them. How about if I buy a business and I'm going to buy a business and I'm going to project all the future cash flows that business is going to generate. Did I discount the fact that now, have annuities at different amounts and cash in and cash out? Just get the cash flows, get the discount rate.
$8 million number officially is not excited for you.
Oh, you got the 8,370,000? Didn't believe
I
that.
was a little bit like what? It was like when I took the value of the annuities and took it down or 5,000.
Yeah.
I counted that for 15 years.
They add together and they go 15 years. That's perfect. There's no problem. Whatever occurs to you first.
That just seemed.
Yeah.
I was thinking myself, I can see that people say that.
It can't be that fast.
It's all streaming.
Wow. Yeah, but then when you realize it's not that fast. Because what we can do is we can take the 8,000,004 and discount it back right to now, and it's not anywhere near as much either. Just take 3%. Do the same calculation. Take the 8,000,004 times this 1.03 raised to 45th. You'd get a much smaller number, and then do your annuity, and your annuity be the 123.
Yeah.
You bet. See you guys. See you. We aren't going to make it to hear you play this time.
Oh,
I found out. I know you're really disappointed because we ruined a baseball game the night before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What game?
Yeah. Oh, it's just river bats, but we're going to take my grandson.
Yeah, I got you. Sweet. Yeah, I mean.
So I can't drink beer there and then come and drink beer. Yeah, not.
Or whiskey at the whiskey bar.
Yeah, that's probably what it would be too. So I better not.
No, it's fine. I gotta figure out when